So, start out tonight, I thought we'd just do a quick, Linda, let's get some paper and pens. I'm going to ask you to do a real quick, really short writing exercise, about 1 minute. For introduction, so here's the title of my presentation here tonight: Transforming the Lives of Others by Transforming Our Own. So it's like looking at what do we need to become for ourselves in order to make a difference in the world through advocacy. And so I'm going to ask you, if you would, tonight, we're going to do some intros. We'll start with that. We'll say, just tell us who your name is real quick, and then just tell us real quickly what Ken Schatz did to make you want to come today. What did Ken Schatz say that made you want to come today? So let's just do that real quickly. So Carolyn, first, you want to start over here? Just name and then...
Carolyn Thompson. It appealed to me that it's necessary to become politically active and lobbying in order to create what we want in so many different areas. Mm-hmm. That it just seems that the biggest problem that we have today is the government has been bought off by big industries, and unless we get lobbyists, we won't get our democracy back.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Bruce?
My name is Bruce Gotts. I can talk about a methodology for limiting poverty. I think it is absolutely a scandal that poverty still exists in this world. It's an embarrassment as a member of the human race. I mean, we have the will. If we had the will, we have the resources to do it. And we haven't done it. And until somebody makes it a priority, nobody will do it. And I would be part of the process. I try to work in small ways. I'm glad somebody's working on it. Well, if that is the issue.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. Thank you so much, Bruce. Yeah.
And my name is Beth Maxey, and I think I was, first of all, his excitement was very contagious. That he and Linda had been doing this, and they were, had really put their life, and I'm sure that they're both people that could have been doing all sorts of other things with their life right now. They probably have many, many options, and that was very interesting to me. And poverty is so overwhelming. The poverty of the world, and the poverty that I even see around us, much less the world. And we're probably not that poor compared to some of the people in the world. There's so much that is overwhelming, and it just makes me feel hopeless. And then I just turn off. I just think, well, better go on and find something that you can do. And I think what Tim was saying is that this is something that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
That was cool.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Sarah?
Well, I think I'm overwhelmed to know that there's so much poverty, and not only in this country, but others. And I guess what got me more concerned is when you talk about children who don't have an education or can't get an education. That is just too overwhelming, and that's where I would like to find where I can do my part.
Fantastic. That's great, Sarah. Thank you. Joe?
I'm Joe Myers, and I guess I'm here mainly from curiosity because I want to understand the level of potential you have for this.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. John?
You're focused on changing policy so that I guess we try to do part of the maldistribution of wealth that we have now, which we talk about. The fact that you aim at heavy on lobbying, how we use seats of power, very important. That's where it's hard to equate people with wealth, partly. That's what's
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you all for that, and for your introductions and for that. What I'd like you to do is take 1 minute right now, if you would, and just write down for yourself, who do I want to be in the world? Just answer the question, who do I want to be in the world? And you can just do it like, I want to be someone who, and just complete that sentence for yourself. And just to get yourself in touch with who it is we ultimately want to be in the world. And hopefully we can kind of come back to that later on. But just take 1 minute to do that for yourself. Okay, I'll let you finish that off, and then we have an ambitious agenda for today. My hopes for today, can everybody see this okay? Can everybody read
I
this?
can not.
You want to hit the lights? Let's go ahead and hit the lights on this. So my hopes for today are that we'll explore the why and how results advocates for change. I want us to gain some skills today and take some action. So I'm going to put you in action today. This is not all me talking at you. I want to inspire you about the difference you can make with results. And then finally, I'd love to engage some of you in getting something started here in your community around results, getting people engaged in results activities and advocating and supporting results. So that's my hopes for the day. We've got an ambitious agenda. So I want to start by just telling you a little bit about why results exist in the first place. And I think our vision captures it quite well. Our vision is to be the leading catalyst of a rapid progress toward a world where poverty no longer exists. So we're shooting for big things in the world, and we believe they're really possible. Where nobody dies of causes in one part of the world or nation that are preventable in other parts of the world or nation, where all children are receiving a quality education, where all people have access to economic opportunity, where all people have access to basic health care, and then finally this last one, where a critical mass of people take responsibility for guiding their government decision makers and others to create a world that contains all of these things. We think this is a key factor in creating all of this. And these are big areas for us. These are key areas for us. Education, economic opportunity, and basic health care. We realize if we address these three things really properly, we have a good chance of alleviating poverty. And just a little bit more about results in terms of our mission. So that's our vision. Here's our mission. To create the political will to end hunger and the worst aspects of poverty. And then again, the second one, you see this again, the theme here, to empower individuals to have breakthroughs in exercising their personal and political power. This is something that's not being done a whole lot, and this is a gap that Results is trying to fill in our world, in our United States, and actually in the world. I want to tell you a little bit about why I do this. I just want to tell you a little story about why I got involved with Results. I've been working with Results for about 7 years. I was a volunteer for about 3 years before that. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa. I was in the country of Niger. I had the quintessential Peace Corps experience. I lived in a mud hut with a grass roof in a rural village out in the middle of nowhere, no running water, no electricity. I was camping for 2 years, essentially.
What is
Niger? Niger.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I guess that's the French pronunciation. Niger, I guess, is what we say. Sorry about that.
All right, thanks.
So in West Africa, and the people of Niger were so hospitable, and particularly my village of Orogo. These are my neighbors here. This is Biba and her children here. This is Isa, her husband. He's a regional blacksmith for the area. Real great guy, a real joker, a lot of energy. And they're the people who took care of me. They essentially became my family there. They adopted me. They made sure I had food. They made sure that I was never, ever, ever, ever alone. Ever. Again, which was good and bad. But again, that was their way of showing hospitality. To leave me alone, they felt would be really inhospitable and not treating me like a guest. So they and the other folks in the village really were with me all the time. And so again, I really got to know them quite well and be a part of their family. And then I got to know so many other people in the village really, really well. I was there. They adopted me, the entire village did. So one day, Isa came over to my concession, my yard, and I could tell he was really troubled. And his face looked really troubled. And he came up to me and he said, "Karim, so that's the language Fulfulde. We were speaking Fulfulde. And he said to me, "Ken, please come and look at my child. She's sick. She does not know who I am." And so I didn't quite understand what he meant by "she does not know who I am." I thought I had a mistranslation on that one. And so I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll come over and look at her." But he was clearly worried about what was going on. So I went over to their hut. And here's the 3-4-month-old baby laying on the bed. And I could tell immediately what he meant by that phrase. Her eyes were sort of just kind of rolling in her head, and she She was not present. She was not there. And for me, I immediately was in my head like, I need to get this child some medical attention. But then the other thing is like, well, where do I get that? There's no trained village healthcare worker. The medical facility is kilometers away, and this child clearly needs some immediate attention. So I did whatever I could. I monitored the child. I checked her breathing and checked her heart, whatever else, looked at her body, and I didn't know what to do. And so as I monitored her, her breathing kept slowing down until she finally stopped breathing. So I gave her mouth to mouth. I tried to keep her heart beating, and I just kept working on her the best I could. That's the only thing I knew how to do. And again, all in the while, my head saying, this child has no access to health care anywhere. I don't know where to take her. There's no place for me to take her. Until finally, I had to give up. She was not coming back. She was gone. And in the back, I heard Viva scream when I stopped. And it's like she just lost another child. That was her third child that she lost. So for me, it's like, I didn't connect all the dots until later on in life, after I started with results. But there are so many children dying of preventable causes because they don't have adequate health care. The mothers don't get prenatal care. The kids don't get adequate vaccinations. And at that time, I think there were about 32,000 children, estimated 32,000 children each day dying of preventable causes. And that baby, Issa and Viva's baby, was one of them that day. So fast forward, I went over to Niger to spend 2 years in the Peace Corps. I ended up coming back home about 7.5, 8 years later. I was there 7.5, 8 years over a 10-year stretch in West Africa. I got involved in doing other things and continuing to do development work, essentially. But when I came back to the United States, the thing that was really difficult for me is here I'd left all these people, including my friends in the village of Orogo, in a position where someone like Viva and Issa's baby could experience the very same thing again. And I just couldn't walk away from that. I couldn't say, well, hey, I'm done with West Africa. That was a great experience. See you all later. They were my friends. They had become my family. And their lives and the mothers and the fathers, when they lose a baby, it hurts just as much as if we lose our own. So I couldn't walk away from that, but I really struggled to figure out, so what do I do from 7,000 or 8,000 miles away? And then somebody told me about results. After years of kind of struggling with this, I really didn't know what to do. Again, gave donations to organizations who were continuing to do work. Somebody told me about results, and I thought, it was kind of a light bulb moment. They said, well, you can actually affect how the United States invests its foreign aid dollars. You can also affect how much money we invest if you actually work with your members of Congress and your decision makers and tell them about the solutions to poverty and get them to channel monies into things that are going to reach people like the people of Orogo and Viva and Issa's family and all of those folks, getting healthcare workers in there, making sure kids got vaccinations. You can actually make a dent in that. You can make that happen. I mean, actually, I think about it, if I can affect the system from this end, because the people in the U.S. government, this is one thing that we don't really take note of. We have access, as citizens, to the most powerful people in the world. Our decision makers, the people who are in our Congress, are the most powerful people in the world. And we have access to them. So again, that was just a sort of a light bulb thing for me. It's like, well, yeah, we could actually change a lot of things if we put ourselves in contact with the most powerful people in the world. I told results, I don't know how to advocate that. I never done this before. And they said, don't worry about that. A lot of people don't know how to advocate. We'll teach you. And so I started. And results taught me to reach out to my member of Congress, to develop a relationship with their staff, to develop a relationship with my representative, to contact my senators, to sit down with my editorial board of the media, poverty problems and the solutions. And I found that I was lucky. My New York representative, powerful woman, and I just saw things start to change with how she was making her decisions, with the information she had. There was a lot of things she didn't know. And again, so for me, it was like, I was sold. This is what we need to be doing. More of us need to be doing this. I need to be doing this. And so I just continued on. And as Ken and Linda have been doing this for about 30 years, they saw the same thing a long time ago. This is how you make change happen. So that's why I do what I do. I want to address another why of what we do. It's kind of what you said. An incredible amount of absurdity in the world. So this first one, just take this statement in. It's just what you said, kind of, Bruce. It's like, all of the solutions to poverty already exist. It's not like we need to go figure things out. We know how to get kids in school, make sure they get good quality education. We know how to provide good prenatal care. We know how to make sure children live and survive healthily in their lives. We know how to provide economic opportunity to people. We know how to address diseases of poverty, AIDS, TB, malaria. There's a lot of things that we are curing in certain parts of the world that we're not taking care of in other parts of the world. We know this stuff. It already exists. That's comforting. The solutions to poverty already exist. The absurdity part is this one, is that we're not putting the solutions in place. So you've got a situation where we have all the solutions to poverty already existing, yet you've got 1.3 billion people on the planet living on less than $1.25 a day, and about 2.4 billion people still living on less than $2 a day. This is absurd. You got 2.5, and I should have changed that yesterday. I forgot to change the slide. 2.5 million children die of malnutrition each year. And then the survivors of malnutrition, 165 million children, are experiencing brain and body underdevelopment. Meaning out of the gates, we don't allow their brains to develop properly or their bodies, and then they are limping through life because they did not have just basic nutrition during the first 1,000 days to make sure their brains and bodies develop properly. That's absurd. And finally, we've got 1.3 million people that are dying each year of treatable diseases like tuberculosis. Totally treatable. Curable. 1.7 million people dying of treatable AIDS as well. You have 57 million children who are not going to step foot inside a classroom. 57 million children not going to even learn to read or write, let alone the kids that should be going to junior high and high school who are not. There's big things to do on poverty, and the solutions already exist. This phrase kind of captures the absurdity, I think, quite well. This is our founder, Sam Daly Harris, loves this quote. It's by former Republican Senator Mark Hatfield. It says, he said, "We stand by as children starve by the millions because we lack the will to eliminate hunger. Yet we have found the will to create missiles capable of flying over the polar cap and landing within a few hundred feet of its target. This is not innovation. This is a profound distortion of humanity's purpose on Earth." Absurdity in a nutshell. Doesn't that sort of capture it for us? So, and that's the question, back to Bruce's question, why does poverty exist at all? If we don't have all the solutions, why doesn't it exist? Well, let's dig into this a little bit. So, government is often the only entity large enough to create the change at the scale needed to address large problems like inequity and poverty. And an example that I like to use is even in our own country, the number of people that are food insecure, if we were to actually to address that problem head on through the private sector, through our faith communities, every faith community in the United States would have to generate an extra $50,000 every year. Is that something this community could do? Generate $50,000 every year just in additional dollars to go towards addressing the issue of hunger? Every faith community in the country would have to do that to have the resources to address hunger in our own country. And that's why we have government. I mean, isn't that why we have government, is to make sure that we're taking care of the assets we have, the people that we have in the country? So government policy, it can explain many of the gains in poverty alleviation, and it can also explain how it's been exacerbated. You can look at policies that have changed, come and gone over time, and you can watch poverty follow those things. The other part of this is that, so you've got government that is is a part of the solution to poverty, yet we are not teaching people how to communicate effectively with their government decision makers. And again, these are the people who are the most powerful people on the planet. We are so lucky to be in a place where we can speak to the most powerful people on the planet. Some of these people in Niger, for example, do you think do their government leaders wield that kind of power in the world as we do? No way. So poverty, the absurdity of poverty continues to exist because there is a lack of political will for the solutions. Just like Mark Hatfield said in that quote. So results tries to get at the gap between people and government. We have elected officials who work for us. We hire them through our voting. We pay their salaries. And I tell people, even if you did not vote for somebody, your tax dollars still pay their salary. Their job is still to represent you. It's sort of like in a job, if you were all doing a selection committee, you had all the resumes in front of you, you wanted this resume, but somebody else gets hired, that person still works for you, just even if you didn't select them. That's the case of our government. Nobody's really teaching citizens how to supervise the people we hire. It doesn't show up in high school, and I would like to hear anybody dispute this. It does not show up in high school how you communicate effectively with your decision makers. It does not show up in college, and occasionally it shows up in families. Anybody want to dispute that? It is the truth. Supervising people takes time, and most of us don't carve out enough time or even know how to do it, is the challenge. We don't know how to do it. And the question then also becomes then, if you've got people who are working for you and you're not supervising, I'm not supervising them, what's going on then? I see it this way. There's a couple of possibilities. You got a bunch of rogue employees out there doing whatever they want to, or somebody else is supervising them. Right? And we know who's supervising people out there. We know who's doing that. That's what you talked about. So here's what's going on in lobbying. Again, I have some 2012 numbers that are just a little bit smidget different from this, but not much. So in terms of registered lobbyists, in 2011, registered lobbyists spent $3.31 billion lobbying. An estimated $3.31 billion just lobbying. This many registered lobbyists, 12,654. Average that out by the number of members of Congress, you've got 24 paid lobbyists on average for every member of Congress. So that's who's supervising. That's who's supervising. And they're doing it in an absence of us. They're getting away with it and getting their way because we are not doing our job supervising. And the thing about our supervision, actually, and I want to show this to you, it's actually more powerful than theirs. So this is a study from the Congressional Management Foundation. They surveyed hundreds of congressional aides. And this is just one slide from the study. They said, if your member or senator has not already arrived at a firm decision on an issue, how much influence might the following advocacy strategies directed to the Washington office have on his or her decision? And so the dark blue says this would have a lot of influence, and then the light blue says this would have some influence. The top most influential thing is an in-person visit from a constituent. 46% of them said that this would have a lot of influence. Another 51% said that that would have some positive influence. Again, positive influence in both of these cases. Next one, contact from constituents who represent other constituents. I'm from the Clearwater UU, and this is, I'm representing a community. We had a conversation about this is what we care about. 36% said that that would have a lot of positive influence. Another 60% said it would have some. As you go down here, then an influence. Individualized postal letters. So ones that are written by us with our stories and are personalized, come from our own hearts. 20% said a lot, 70% said some. Individualized email messages. That shows you that email messages, personalized ones, are just as powerful almost as letters. Phone calls, 14%, 72%. Comments during a telephone town hall meeting, which members of Congress do these days, 17%, 68%. This one here, number 8, visit from a lobbyist. 8% said it would have a lot of positive influence. 74% said it would have some positive influence. So you've got lobbyists spending $3.31 million every year. Billion, thank you. Billion with a B, that's a big number. And these guys are not even doing it from a position of power. But they're doing it, though. For them, even not being able to say, I can hire or fire you, which they cannot. Only you and I can hire or fire our people. We're the voters. We're the only people who can do that. Constituents are the only people who can hire or fire. Yet these people are willing to spend $3.31 billion of the money we know about to lobby their members of Congress. They're counting on the fact that they're going to try to get what they want to, but that this is not going on. Not enough of it anyways.
Was this data from what the Congress people said, or who did this?
This is congressional staff members commenting on their members of Congress they work for. So hey, so if you're a member, how does this influence your member of Congress if somebody does this, 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 or this? What is the most powerful thing they could do? Or they basically surveyed them and said, so how does this influence them?
Yeah, I just wonder if whether or not they would admit to being influenced very heavily by the lobbyists that are paying money for their campaign.
I mean, these were pretty anonymous things, whatever, not people weren't being called out on or anything. And that's actually, the study is quite fascinating. You know, it would be worth taking a look at the whole thing to see that, you know, about the credibility of it. Yeah?
I'm surprised that if you speak to your congressman as an individual versus speaking for some group of people, that you wouldn't have more influence in the latter case. It's not what you're showing in that chart.
Well, the thing is, for them, it's constituents. It's sort of constituents. And sometimes, like a contact from constituent who represents other constituents, I guess the more constituents to show up, the better, I guess.
But you're showing that if I come in there and say, I'm speaking for, 100, 300 people, wouldn't that carry more weight than if I'm just speaking for myself?
I don't know.
Even if I'm the only one that shows up.
This is how they answered the survey, so, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
It seems a little counterintuitive.
yeah, it could very well be,
Not
too.
as effective as having 300 people go.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 300 people show up in a meeting, and
That's a
they...
little different.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was talking about if you spoke for someone, which I understand that was that line.
And I'll go back to it. Does anybody else want to look at that further for the moment? We can always go back to it. Yeah, I mean, this is how they responded. So again, depending, I suppose, it's like how that showed up. You said you were speaking for 300 constituents. That could be very powerful.
I think there's power in being a human being with a face and a name and eye-to-eye contact. There is a lot of power in me saying I represent 300 people who are vague. So I can see where a person, especially if the person were trained and they were polite, respectful, instead of screaming or something. That would probably influence them too, but just not in a good way,
Well, and that, what you said there, the looking them in the eye and being with them in person, that is the best tool we have. That is the best advocacy tool we have, is a relationship, being with them. So I'll continue on a little bit more. I'm going to get into what advocacy is. I want to make sure we stay on track, and by 8 o'clock I want to be in action. So what keeps us from power? 1, not knowing how to supervise because nobody's teaching it. 2, not being superior to our own fear. There's a fear that goes along with saying, hey, you're going to talk to your member of Congress. I've had people like just asking them to pick up the telephone. It's like, I mean, there's something that forms in your gut, when somebody asks you to do this stuff. There's a bit of fear around this stuff. I don't know what to say. What if I'm not smart enough? And what if I don't know it well enough? And whatever. Yeah.
You usually are talking to their aide, though, not to them personally, usually.
Most times you're talking to their aide, but you're also working to get in front of them face to face. That's what Results does. You guys have met with Kathy Castor, Gus.
Kathy, Gus, Rich Nugent, and he ran away.
So most times you are working with their staff, but you absolutely, your goal is to get in front of them personally so that they can actually, you can develop that personal relationship with them so that anything comes from their aide and they know it's from you, that it matters to them. So cynicism, there's a lot of cynicism. It shows up all over the news. All we hear about the stories of people infighting and all that. So a lot of us are cynical about government. We think everybody's corrupt sometimes. Cynicism, and that keeps us from action sometimes. Things are too big for us, problems. That last one here, poverty. It's like, oh, that's not such a monster. How do I possibly attack that thing? So this is the stuff that actually kind of keeps us from our power. So there's some things that actually, for us to seize our power, some things that need to change in us. Hence the title of this thing, is sort of transforming ourselves. One is we need to start seeing ourselves as supervisors and start supervising. I am a supervisor. I am a supervisor. I am a supervisor. These people work for me. These people work for me. We need to be in touch with the absurdities in the world and be outraged by them. It's easy to get complacent with the absurdities. Poverty's always going to be there, or whatever. This is just how the way things are, whatever else. We need to think about the fact that all of the poverty solutions already exist, and how absurd it is that poverty is at the levels it continues to be at, and to be really in touch with that. We need to be learning new skills, advocacy skills, how to work with Congress, the media, and our communities. We need to fill this gap of skills, because again, it's not being taught wholesale anywhere. We need to take a chance. This is a risk, this stuff is. It's like for a lot of people, if you're coming from a place of cynicism, if you're coming from a place, I don't know how to do this, if you're coming from a place that says to myself, I can't change big things, there is a little bit of a leap of faith that says, I'm going to try this. It's a risk. If you want to get to what's at the other side, though, and I'll tell you about that later, then it does require stepping out. It does require confronting, being, a little uncomfortable at first, getting outside your comfort zone. And then finally, just need to suspend the belief that we can't make a difference while we try to advocate. If I don't think I can do something big, I need to suspend that for a minute and say, well, I'm going to try. These folks said that I could actually be part of doing something really big. I don't know if that's true or not, but let me give it a shot. And that's what we ask people who start with results to do. So, I don't want to leave you, nice meeting you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Bye, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you, too. I don't want to leave you with the folks with the idea that no progress has been made on poverty or anything like that. A lot of progress has been made. There is some sanity prevailing around this stuff. It's just not happening fast enough. So look at some of the long-term results of returns on advocacy. And results has had a hand in all of these things. We've got child deaths dropping from 40,000 per day in the mid-1980s to less than 20,000 per day today. That's preventable child deaths. It's been cut in half. And that's as the population of the planet has increased by a couple of billion people. So these are raw numbers. Terrible number, 20,000. But a huge, huge improvement. 50,000 people in Africa had access to antiretroviral medication at the height of the AIDS crisis in 2000. People were dropping dead left and right. One of our colleagues, Winston Zulu, said that they would, basically it was a constant stream of digging graves all night long so that you could have places to bury the people the next day in the funerals that were happening all day long. At the height of the crisis, that's what it looks like in Zambia, in his country. So right now there are over 4 million people in Africa who are actually on antiretrovirals. We're moving in the right direction. Malaria deaths are down between 60 and 85% in many poor countries, and there's a good shot we could actually eliminate malaria deaths by 2015 in a couple of years here because of what's happening. This is astounding. Mother-child to child transmission of HIV/AIDS could be ended by 2015. We actually know how to do this, so no child would ever have to get HIV from their mother even if she's HIV positive. We've got 9.7 million cases of infectious TB detected and treated in the last 10 years. And the end of poverty is becoming a possibility. The president of the World Bank said, as his goal of the president of the World Bank, it is to end extreme poverty by 2030. The President of the United States, in his own State of the Union, talked about ending extreme poverty by 2030. So world leaders are actually starting to see that this is possible. But we've got to continue to invest and put pressure if we ever want to get here. It's an amazing thing to even think about. So just some recent examples of the result successes. We generated nearly 60 pieces of media around the country. We packaged that. It was about nutrition, child nutrition. We've got 84 representatives and 18 senators, both Republicans and Democrats, to sign on to a letter to the administration asking that we make a bold pledge on child nutrition at a summit on June 8th. It just happened this past June 8th. The administration committed to over $1 billion over the next 3 years to this. And this was a big win for us. We didn't know, we knew we were investing some money in this. We didn't know how much it was. Now we have a commitment of $1 billion, and we can track that money to make sure that it's invested to address the malnutrition affecting the 2.5 million children dying each year of malnutrition, and also the survivors of malnutrition, that 165 million kids who are experiencing brain and body underdevelopment. Just, here in this area, these guys, how many pieces of nutrition media did you guys generate?
I think it's 3 or 4.
3 or 4
off the top
people?
of my head, yeah.
Mhm.
And Dennis Ross was one of the signers.
Mhm.
And not just because of us, not just because of results, certainly not just us, but Marco Rubio signed on. And that was results and that other group working on it also, on his aid.
And then this is a letter, if you want to take a look at this letter. This Dennis Ross signed this letter. Again, you've got Republicans and Democrats joining together to ask the administration to do bold things on nutrition. And again, this would not have happened. Dennis Ross would never have been a signer on this letter without your work.
Didn't know about it.
Yeah, he didn't know about it. And the media that we generated, again, packaging that off, sending it to the administration, opens their eyes saying, people around the country they care about this issue, and they want the United States to show up boldly. This stuff matters. Yes?
Seems like reducing birth rates should be on that list.
Do you know how you reduce birth rates?
Empower women.
Empower women, one. What's the next way you do it?
I don't, you tell me.
Contraception.
Well, yeah.
Well, contraception is certainly one. You would make sure that children survive in the first place. As soon as children live, birth rates start to go down. It's counterintuitive. It's totally counterintuitive. But you look in any country where a family can count on their babies living past age 5 and grow up, their birth rates start to go down. Bangladesh was a country where the fertility rate was 8 children per woman. 8 children per woman. They, in Bangladesh, through their poverty reduction strategies, economic opportunity strategies, getting kids in school strategies, it's down to 2.2 per woman now, over a 20-25 year period. So the best way to actually start to reduce the birth rates is to make sure that the kids survive in the first place.
They should be on that chart.
Okay. I'll take that suggestion. We used media to pressure the World Bank to have them keep a pledge of $750 million to invest an additional $750 million into global basic education. And then we mobilized the media and Congress and the administration to make bold pledges to the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations to help save the lives of 4 million babies by 2015. 4 million babies. 4 million babies. We are part of an effort to save 4 million babies. I know that my work, I know that Ken's work and Linda's work and the results chapter in Tampa's work is helping save 4 million babies by 2015. And then also to make bold pledges to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, which we're going to talk about tonight, to save millions more lives. So that's just an example of kind of things that we end up doing. And then just behind the successes, behind those successes are people like you and I. Normal people like you and I deciding to take the risk that our voices will matter. Deciding to take the risk that I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to learn how to talk to my member of Congress and their staff, to work with the media, and to work with our communities. That's what is behind all of these successes. People deciding to take a shot. So, let's get into what is advocacy a little bit, and what are we trying to do. I like to just use this as a very simple way to explain what we're trying to do in advocacy. You look at your decision maker and you say, so on child nutrition, where is Dennis Ross? Dennis Ross, he hasn't said anything negative about it. Dennis Ross hasn't said anything about it. So he's probably kind of uninformed, maybe neutral in this area. So if we can actually inform Dennis Ross, maybe we can get Dennis Ross to be a supporter of child nutrition. So let's work with their staff, let's educate them, let's talk to them, and then let's ask Dennis Ross to support an effort to do child nutrition, this letter. Great. We move Dennis Ross up to supporter. So this is what we're trying to do. If someone's speaking out vocally against all foreign assistance and whatever else, for us, that's your opponent. If you can tell this person, educate this person how it's saving millions of lives, putting kids in school, but not only that, it's actually positive on our economy. It also makes us a more secure nation. Maybe you can actually get them just to quiet down and end up in neutral. That's a win. So our advocacy, we try to help our volunteers see, assess where your members are in the champion scale, and then figure out how do we move them from one place to the other? How do we move them up toward becoming champions, step by step? So, and then we also, as advocates, we have to understand, well, how do our decision makers make decisions in the first place? Where do they get their information? How do they make the decisions? They get it from constituents. You saw from the staffers that they care to hear from constituents. That matters to them. From their staff, the staff are really important. They're oftentimes the gatekeepers. If they're not convinced that something is worth doing, they may not pass that information on to the representative or the senator. So we need to develop relationships with them, and we need to be able to ask them, are you ready? Do you feel like you have the information that you need, and are you convinced enough to recommend that the representative take this action? Colleagues, they speak to each other all of the time. So a lot of times we'll have, Ileana Ross-Leighton is the person that Gus Bilirakis looks to make decisions. So if we can get our folks over in Miami to ask Ileana to talk to Gus to say, you should support this, Gus, there's a good chance that Gus is going to do it. Media matters. Our decision makers care what shows up in the media, and it just matters. At any level. So particularly if their name is in it. Paid lobbyists, we can't deny the fact that people are influenced by paid lobbyists, and they are. Experts, what is the data? What is the information saying? What is the research saying? And then personal history, where they were born, what they did before they became a member of Congress. What faith community are they part of? Do they have kids? All sorts of things that way, and we research those things. And then finally, what are our tools here? Relationship is the number one. As people talked about, seeing people eye to eye. Relationship, I don't care what's happened over the past 30 years in terms of technology and whatever else, relationships is still the key driver of change. It is. And we can play there. We can all play there. Media, again, powerful speaking, being able to really represent the issues well and know our facts, but also stories. To be able to recite stories. People often say, hey, I'm a numbers person, whatever. And I always tell people that, even if someone's a numbers person, everybody is a story person. Our brains are organized to take things in stories. And so stories matter. Good information, solid information, and then collective influence, really having people work together. These are the tools we use in results. So just to kind of recap a little bit on results, and then we're going to get into some action here. Results recognizes that there are solutions to all of the problems of poverty. That's, again, there's some comfort in that too. There's some real comfort in that. It's like we're not still looking for them. That there are key pressure points around in poverty around health, education, and economic opportunity. If you can address these three areas, and not only these three areas, but where we focus these, you can address a lot of the problems of poverty. Results knows that creating political will to put poverty solutions in place is the answer. We have to be able to do that. And so we created a system of training and support to really change the fact that there's not political will to do that right now, or enough political will to do that. So we empower individuals to have breakthroughs in exercising their personal and political power. So Any quick questions? Because I'd love to get us into some action. All right, so,
Got the lights?
I have a question.
There you go.
yeah, do you need to hit the restroom real quick? That's okay? Yes, go ahead.
Clinton and Gates have put a lot of money and they're building organizations to do similar things, as I see it. Maybe they're slightly off a little left or right or something, but it seems to me they're putting their names and their money out to essentially farm the same soil that you're doing. Is that true? Or and if it is, how are you relating to them, their resources?
Great question. We'll address it directly in the Global Fund conversation in terms of how that we are working together around the Global Fund. But more specifically, the way Gates, for example, is investing in this idea of advocacy is by granting organizations like Results to advocate. So we have a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to do our global health advocacy. So they're seeing that they can actually have bigger bang for the buck investing in us to leverage other bigger resources than they could if they took that same amount of money and put it directly in the healthcare programs. So they are doing it.
You do have such a grant.
We absolutely do, yeah.
In size, how does it compare with some of the other revenue that you get?
It's sizable.
Size?
It's sizable. It's sizable. I don't know that I can disclose exactly how much it is. I don't know if I can tell you exactly how much it is, but it's in the millions of dollars.
It's going on for a few years.
Yeah, it's been going on for over 5 years now. So, I mean, they've invested in us, and we are one of their key advocacy grant people. They're sort of like anchor grants for advocacy. So they understand that this stuff is powerful. Any other questions? Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to tell you about our campaign. Our campaign today is to get the Obama administration to make a pledge of $5 billion over 3 years to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. I'm going to train you a little bit about the Global Fund. Our role today, your role today, is to learn a little bit about the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. We're going to practice speaking about the Global Fund. We're going to write a letter to your elected official about the Global Fund that Ken and Linda are going to hand carry to Washington and deliver to them. And this last one we will not have time for, but I would love to have the mock meeting with a member of Congress because that's a lot of fun, but we will not have the time tonight. So let's talk about the Global Fund. So what is the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria? It is an independent, international, non-governmental organization. It brings together government, civil society, and the private sector. A lot of private sector companies are invested in this. And it provides grants and technical assistance to address AIDS, TB, and malaria in poor countries and in about 140 countries around the world. And then it requires broad civil society involvement, so it's not like they go to a country and say, we're just going to work with the government. Civil society also has to be involved in creating the plans to address those diseases. The plans have to be sound, the plans have to be outcome-driven, and there has to be a high degree of accountability for results. It is a great example of what good development looks like. And our government recognizes that, and as does all of the G8 governments, as does the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They invest in this as well, as do other big granting foundations as well, and private enterprise.
I'm trying to visualize this. Is the Global Fund supporting some kind of staff of people to carry this out? How does that?
There's a staff in Geneva. They work with the countries to develop these plans. The countries bring their various healthcare sectors and civil society people together to say, hey, here's the problem, here's what we need, what's going to work in our country. They design the plan. The people in Geneva provide the technical assistance to make sure that it is sound. The plan is sound.
What would constitute a civil society of a country?
It could be like non-governmental organizations that are operating, like nonprofits that are operating in that country. It could be their Chamber of Commerce participants in that country. It could be.
If you go into Rwanda, you're expecting to find things like that?
You do find things like that. You find that in every country in Africa. They're much more organized than you would imagine, actually. And those structures actually do exist, which is kind of interesting. Again, we don't often know that, but they're quite sophisticated in many of these places. Even in the rural village where I was a Peace Corps volunteer, there was a thing called the Conseil Villageois de Développement. It was the local village council. And there was a woman representative, and they made decisions together and all of that. So All of those things do exist. Yeah.
Just to be clear, when you say do they have staff, if someone's going to go out and help children get vaccinated, it's not going to be a global fund person.
I didn't expect that. I
Okay.
expect they would, what I'm expecting, they have to have a significant staff in order to even approach these countries and work with them.
Well, the Global Fund is very, very well known around the world, and very well respected by developed countries and developing countries. And so, again, they're really the kind of the technicians and the sort of accountability people and all that, and then they also gather the funds as well from different countries like the United States, like the UK, from private
So are they staff
enterprises.
of tens, hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands?
I don't know what their staff looks like, to tell you the truth. Their overhead is about 5% is what the estimates are.
They
About
have a
5%.
website.
Yeah, they do. They have a website. You can actually go to their website. Everything they do, every penny they spend, you can find on their website. It's totally transparent in terms of what you can find there. You can find every country plan there, how much money they put in, what the country plan looks like, what their objectives are, what progress they're making, and the administrative part of the Global Fund as well. So, it is recognized as a well-run development organization, and across the board. Across the board, it is like the model organization.
And so it's just called Global Fund.
The Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria.
That's the whole thing.
Yes. So from the Global Fund report here, just recently, it said, this is one of the quotes from the report. It says, if the momentum of the last decade is maintained and countries continue to scale up programs at the current rate, malaria could be eliminated as a public health problem in most endemic countries, and indeed there would be hope for a world without malaria by 2015. It's a pretty mind-blowing thing to be able to say. I mean, that we're actually on track to end malaria deaths. It's a huge killer and has been for eons. They also said that in addition to that, millions more HIV infections would be prevented and lives otherwise lost to AIDS would be saved. The growing threat of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis may be contained, and it may be possible to virtually eliminate transmission of HIV from babies to the babies from their mothers. Yeah.
Approximately 400.
400 employees?
Staff of approximately 400
Okay, very good.
in Geneva.
Do you want some more water? We have a water thing out there.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind that.
I'll just go fill it up.
Thanks. Wait, Linda, do you mind doing that? Since you haven't heard this stuff.
Okay.
I'm going to show it.
Right out there towards the bathroom.
In fact, it's going to be a
There's
test
our
case if
handout.
you don't want to miss anything.
I could see he was going to be thirsty because I'm big on thirsty.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Pat.
I really appreciate that. So I want to show you a short video. So there's a lot of numbers. I threw out a lot of numbers, and you know what's possible and all that. I want to share with you. So what does this really mean? You know, when you're addressing these diseases of poverty, what does this really mean? So let me see if I can. Get this rolling here. See if I've got sound. I do. This is just a short video.
It was dark when I found you. I'll build you a house in the oak tree outside, but you can come back whenever you would like. Don't be frightened, I'll set you up right, 'cause everyone needs somebody sometime. I'll leave the light on so you know I'm at home, and you can come in. You won't be alone. Don't be scared of the night, 'cause I'll fix you up right. 'Cause everyone needs somebody
90 days. 90 days. Thank you very much.
I don't know what I saw there.
So they started at day 90, and then they went back in reverse. She was photographed every day for 90 days, and day 1 was the beginning day when she first started her AIDS treatment.
So she looked that bad and she actually improved.
Oh, I didn't get that.
That's where she started with AIDS, is that depleted body, and this is when this was totally all in reverse. That was her first day of AIDS treatment, day 1. In 90 days, that's what she looked like. At the end of that, when you saw the start of it, her image at that time, that was after 90 days of treatment.
You're working backwards.
She's going backwards.
I thought she was losing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe they ought to run it.
She was losing the whole time, but they were running it backwards to day
No,
1.
I know, but I mean, I thought she started healthy and somehow they would watching
Yeah,
her be
they're
ill.
watching her get unhealthy.
They're just showing you, it shows you the effects of treatment,
Wow.
the effect of
That's
AIDS
amazing.
treatment in 90 days' time. 3 months, she went from
Oh, yeah.
just totally depleted person to a whole human being.
Wow.
So I just wanted you to see this is what we're talking about. We're talking about people's lives. And people like this woman, Selena, there's about another 7-8 million people who are waiting to receive AIDS treatment who do not have access to it yet. I mean, they're just asking us to throw, I mean, wouldn't you want somebody to throw you a lifeline like that if you were in that situation? And essentially that's what we can do with our voices. All of the risk that we feel about, like, well, I don't know how to do this, makes me nervous, whatever, I'm afraid to make a phone call. That's what's on the other side of it. It's sort of like you have to ask yourself, can I afford to be uncomfortable? Can I afford to be nervous? Can I afford to be a little fearful and do something if I know that that's what's on the other side of it? For me, it's clearly yes. I can overcome those barriers. So I wanted you to see that this is the kind of stuff that the Global Fund is doing for literally millions of people. Our investments really matter. That woman there, instead of lying on a bed and then wondering whether or not her children are going to become AIDS orphans, she's able to go out and work, she's able to take care of her kids, she's able to produce food, she's able to live a normal life. So let's get into action. Do you have an action sheet?
I did, there's one up there.
Great. So let's, this is a tool that results, this is one of the ways we provide support to people.
I'll turn on the lights.
Yeah, let's turn the lights on if we can. Every month we put together an action sheet, and the action sheet provides background information on an issue,
He didn't prep you on that.
and then this tool can be used to help people write letters to their members of Congress or make phone calls or whatever the case may be. We know that people's time is limited and valuable, and so we try to really distill things down for people into meaningful things, meaningful tools that they can use. So what I'd like us to do right now, if we could, is to go ahead and read through this out loud. Just kind of, we'll go around and just kind of read through it out loud. Then everybody can hear what we're doing. Maybe we can just start over here, Carolyn, with you.
Will the U.S. continue to lead on the Global Fund? Write a letter to your member of Congress to be hand-carried to Washington. The Global Fund is one of the kindest things people have ever done for each other. Bill Gates. We have a choice. We can invest now or pay forever. Innovations in science and implementation have given us a historic opportunity to completely control these diseases. If we do not, the long-term costs will be staggering. Mark Rahul, Executive Director, Global Fund to Fight AIDS, TB, and Malaria.
Why the Global Fund now? In April of this year, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria set an ambitious new goal to save 10 million lives and prevent 140 to 180 million new infections during the years 2012 and 2016. and new science that early antiretroviral treatment for HIV and AIDS can virtually prevent the sexual transmission of the disease and the ability to eliminate transmission of HIV from mother to child. This is an achievable goal, but only if the Global Fund meets its funding targets at the upcoming replenishment meeting this fall. When donor governments gather at the Global Fund fourth replenishment, the goal will be to raise $15 billion to drive the implementation of the Global Fund strategy for saving 10 million lives. At the replenishment, the U.S. should pledge $5 billion over 3 years to keep the world on track for achieving this ambitious goal. Because every $1 the U.S. gives to the Global Fund leverages $2 from other donor nations. Leadership from the U.S. and a bold U.S. pledge is critical. This will not be an easy lift, given sequestration and budget battles in Washington. Your voice will make a difference.
Linda, do we want to go around this way?
Write a letter to your members of Congress. Below is a sample letter in epic format. Engage. Dear Senator or Representative, Louisa Makakola of Zambia visited the U.S. earlier this year. She had one simple message: thank you for saving my life. She was talking about the U.S. investments in the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. The Global Fund gives an estimated 100,000 people per month the chance at a full life. People like Louisa.
Hey, problem, but Louisa is one of the lucky ones. Though the numbers are going down, there are still about 1.7 million people dying of AIDS each year, 1.4 of TB, and 660,000 of malaria. We've got this disease on the run, but we are far from defeating them.
Information about the solution. The Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria has been the most effective tool in the battle against these killer diseases. The Global Fund currently channels 82% of international funding for TB, 50% of malaria funding, and 21% of international funding to fight AIDS. Since its establishment in 2002, the Global has supported programs in 151 countries, providing AIDS treatments for 44.2 million people, anti-tuberculosis treatment for 9.7 million people, and 130 to 310 million insecticide-treated nets for prevention of malaria. As a result, new AIDS infections are declining in countries most affected by the epidemic. More countries are in a position to eliminate malaria deaths, and the world is on course to cut TB deaths in half by 2005 as compared to 1990.
Call to action. Continue to accelerate our progress on these diseases of poverty. The Global Fund will be holding its fourth replenishment conference later this year and is estimated in need of $15 billion over 3 years to fulfill a plan to save 10 million lives and prevent 140 to 180 million through infections. U.S. leadership will be critical at the replenishment conference. Please speak and write to the President and other key officials in the administration requesting that the U.S. make a 3-year pledge totaling $5 billion. Please speak out on behalf of people like Louisa, whose lives have been saved, and others who are waiting for a lifeline. I'm counting on you to fiercely represent me and people around the world who need access to these life-saving interventions.
Keep going, Ken.
Background, yeah, let's keep on going. I'll have people use this next section on the where we are in the disease if you want to use that for your letters. You just want to just talk about value for money real quick there, Ken?
Gotcha. The Global Fund offers tremendous value for money. The Global Fund's new funding model is achieving more impact through enhanced partnerships, country ownership, and focused interventions. The Global Fund consistently leverages additional funding by spurring domestic and private sector investment and works in close partnership with all sectors to develop and support programs. The Global Fund is a learning institution, constantly gaining insight and knowledge. It leverages the data gained from 10 years of successful programs to help guide countries towards the interventions that will produce the greatest value for money.
Very good. So this next section here, so you got two sections here. Where are we on the diseases? This will give you the sort of the state of affairs here. And then this bottom here, we are at a critical moment, kind of talks about some of the progress that has been made, et cetera, and that we really need to continue momentum if we want to make sure that we move towards the elimination of these diseases. If the last note there says if we do not maintain momentum, infection disease rates will go back up, and our tools to control them will not be sufficient. A resurgence of these diseases will result in costs that would likely grow beyond any affordable. We're in a place where we're kind of at a tipping point situation is what this is saying. So if we sort of pull back on it right now, we're going to revert back, and it's going to be very difficult to recapture that progress. We've got to drive this thing forward and put it over the top. And actually, with additional investments now, their models are projecting that down the road here, we can actually reduce the amount of money we would have to invest in these things because we'll have gotten over the top. I don't know if you heard here in this statement back on the front page, why the Global Fund now. There was a note about, and this is not, I just don't want this to be lost on you. Research has proven that if you put people who are HIV positive on drugs before they get sick, so we kind of have been waiting till people get sick to put them on treatment before they get sick, the chance of the AIDS, the HIV infection, is reduced by 96%. 96%. So if you actually, the more people you get on treatment, and the earlier you get them on treatment, then the less likely the disease actually proliferates. That's good news, but it also means that we need to step up our game of getting more people on treatment. So I would like to take the next 10 to 12 minutes or so. I want to give you a chance to write a letter. You've got information here. You saw the movie. And I'm going to ask you to write to your representative. And you can use this example letter that's in this sheet here that we just read through. And I just want to tell you something about the EPIC format. The EPIC format, it says engage, state the problem, inform about the solution, call to action. The engage part in particular for you is something of your own. This is where you becomes an individualized letter. You know, the powerful part is the individualized letter. I saw a film tonight that blew me away. In 90 days' time, someone who's put on HIV/AIDS treatment emerges practically from the dead to become a full human being. Whatever it is you want. Or I learned something about this. Or if you have some own experience with HIV/AIDS, or if this made you think about something, you want to put that and personalize that part of your letter. So I'm going to ask us to take, again, about 10, 12 minutes, write a letter to your representative. And Ken and Linda are going to hand carry these to Washington when we come in July. And does anybody not know who their representative is?
Can we confess?
No, you totally confess. Totally confess.
I've signed these letters, but then you just put your name in and zip code and they fill it in.
I already told you that most people don't know this stuff. So, yeah, no worries. So let's
Leave that space blank and start writing.
Yes, start writing your letter, and I will go around and support people to find out who your member is. I can help you do that. Okay?
I'm 34695. Is that what you want to look up?
Yeah, we'll look up the zip code here.
Yeah,
Let me do that right now.
34695.
I do. Oh, yeah, Joe.
So again, yeah, I mean, this is the starting point. Don't feel bad. People, so many people that I talk to are in the same boat, so
I've been trying to forget
this is the
what
starting
the
point.
representative is, but I've been unable to.
Okay. I think it's Young, but I don't know what his first name is.
Bill.
Bill?
Well, it's William, but everybody calls him Bill.
Okay.
So let me get to my little tool.
I think that's it.
There's a tool on the results website where you can
can
look all this stuff up. Our website has a lot of information and a lot of good, all right. So again, your zip is?
34695. Real close to Billy Ray.
We'll see if your district is split or not.
Well, not really, I mean, I'm not emotionally close, but.
So it's either Young or Castor. What is yours, do you know your +4? No.
No,
What's your street address?
604 Fairmont Avenue.
So for Fairmont?
It's not Castor.
It's not, then it's Young.
It's Young, yeah. I've never heard Castor.
C1.
So, yeah, so,
Yeah. Dear Representative Young.
yeah, okay, thank you.
And you're going to want to make sure you put your name, address, and phone number on this. And again, use the sheet that we gave you as a guide.
Yeah. Probably Clarence. Most people.
I think so.
I have a problem.
Well, that's okay. I can't sit here and do it in 5
My
minutes.
handwriting is illegible.
It's easier for me to go home
Print.
anyway.
My printing is illegible.
No, I'll think about it later.
Go for it. I've been using a keyboard too long.
Okay.
Yeah. I really feel better. using the
Joe.
keyboard.
You want the zip?
We're
33786.
saved
Oh, no, I can't.
by stepping out of character print. They'll actually pay more attention to it printed than they will typed.
This is the representative.
Yes, your representative is Bill Young as well.
337.
That would have been my guess.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know, seriously, a lot of people don't know.
Is it more important to write to the representative than
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
senator?
I think you could write to either, you could write to your representative or your senator, either one. And ideally, you'd write 3 letters, but, if you got time to write one, you choose. Sarah, do you need to know who your representative is?
Yeah, I think he told me.
Well, why don't we give the zip code if that helps?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
33764.
3764? So we got a great tool on our website for this. So it's either Young or Castor.
Is Young, what's Young's full name? Does it say there? Bill.
William.
C.W. Bill Young.
But he goes by C.Y., doesn't he? Isn't that his name?
That's his real name that he goes to Bill.
I haven't looked that up, I will in a second.
Right.
So should we look up if I have your street address there, I can actually get it for sure.
1316 somewhere.
1516
Clearwater.
Sullivan,
Someone, S-U-N-N-E-R.
Summer. Summer. Clearwater. Yeah, Bill Young.
Bill Young.
Hold on. So again, as you're doing this is a powerful action. What's going to happen is you're going to have constituents meeting with their representatives face to face. Top #1 action. Then you've got individualized letters, which is another really high up action in terms of influence. So that's what's you got going here for you. So it does matter your letter writing. There you go. Sorry about that. So P, problem. But Louisa is one of the lucky ones. Though the numbers are going down, there are still 1.7 million people dying of AIDS each year, 1.4 million people dying of tuberculosis, and 660,000 people dying of malaria. I for inform about the solution. The Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria has been the most effective at battling these killer diseases. Over 10 years, the Global Fund has provided AIDS treatment to 4.2 million people, tuberculosis treatment to 9, and 310 million insecticide-treated bed, estimated 100,000 per month, the chance at a full life. People like call to act conference later this year, dollars over 3 years, 2014 through 2016. Fill a plan to save 10 million new infections. These are crazy numbers. U.S. leadership will be critical at the replenishment conference. Please speak to the President or other key officials in the administration requesting that the U.S. make a 3-year pledge of 1/3 of the need, $5 billion. So let's see what you remember here. I'm going to ask you to shout out the answers as I go through this.
Advanced numbers.
So Louisa Makukula of Zambia visited the United States earlier this year. She had one simple message. What was it?
Thank
Thank you for saving my life.
Thanks for saving my life. And she was talking about the U.S. investment in what?
Global Fund to fight AIDS.
Fight AIDS, TB,
The Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Very good. But Louisa is one of the lucky ones. Though the numbers are going down, there are still how many people dying of AIDS each year?
1.7 million.
1.7 million. Still dying each year of AIDS. And that number is actually going down. How many people are dying of tuberculosis in the most recent year?
1.2.
1.4 million. Very
You
good.
find it online enough.
Yeah. The thing about the laser talk, though, is if you run into Bill Young in the grocery store.
An elevator speech is what you call it.
Exactly. This is exactly it. If you run into Bill Young in the grocery store, it's like, Bill, I want to tell you, I was at a meeting the other night, and I was just blown away by, one, the progress we're making on these diseases of poverty, AIDS, TB, malaria, but there's still like 1.7 million people dying of AIDS, and another 1.5, 4 million dying of TB, and then you've got still 660,000
660,000.
dying of malaria. And we have a huge opportunity coming up, Bill. I want to tell you about the opportunity and what I want you to do. Do you have a second to let me finish this? No? So this is the idea. It is the elevator speech. It is about the opportunity that you have, and you can pull this out of your back pocket at any given moment, not the paper, but if you essentially pull it out of your head because you've taken some time to actually learn a few things about this. So this is a speaking tool. So I'm going to go on. Inform about the solution. The Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria has been the most effective tool in battling these killer diseases. Over 10 years, the Global Fund has provided AIDS treatment for how many people? $4.2 million people. 4.2 million people. It has provided tuberculosis testing and treatment to how many? Anybody? 9.7 million people. That's a lot of people. And how many insecticide treatment?
180 million.
No, not quite. Actually, it's more than that.
350 something?
310 million insecticide-treated bed nets have been distributed. I know those are tough numbers. The Global Fund saves an estimated how many lives every month?
100,000.
100,000 lives every month. If you can remember one of them, that's a really good one to remember. That one's actually really impactful. If you're going to forget the other ones, that's fine. It saves an estimated 100,000 lives every month. People like Louisa. The Global Fund will be holding a replenishment conference later this year and has a need for an estimated how much money?
15 billion.
15 billion over what period of time?
3 years.
Years. Spread out over 3 years.
Only 5 billion.
Yep, $5 billion a year. So the $15 billion is needed to fulfill a plan to save how many lives? How many lives is it trying to save with this plan? 10 million lives. 10 million lives.
By
And
the
then
way-
how many diseases are we trying to prevent?
Oh,
3.
finish that.
Well, lots of them.
3.
Yeah.
Well,
How-
but, malaria and tuberculosis,
Yeah.
and just 3 of them.
The 3 that, yes, but I mean, how many infections, I'm sorry, that was my.
Oh, how many?
How many infections are we trying to prevent through this plan? So we're trying to save 10 million lives and sort of stop how many infections?
140 to 180 million.
Yes. It was mind-blowing.
I cheated.
Okay, you cheated. Okay, that's all right.
You didn't
U.S. leadership will be critical at this replenishment conference. Please speak and write to whom?
President.
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 President and his administration. And what do you want the President and the administration to do?
Pledge $5 billion
Over
over
a
3
3-year
years.
period.
Yes, we want the United States to pledge $5 billion over 3 years at the pledging conference. So this is the sort of thing, again, I want to make sure we get done, so the next thing we would do is I'd have you think the answers in your head, and then I would have you practice this with each other. And then once you've gone through this 3 or 4 times like this, and through different ways, You actually remember most of this stuff. You will not remember everything, and that's not the point, is you remember everything. It's that you remember enough to be smart on it at the moment that you need to be smart on it. So this is another tool that Results provides to folks. And again, we try to do this in EPIC format as well. So that's just an example of the kind of support we provide. Let's move on here a little bit.
Could I point out something?
Yes, sir.
If our congregation, individuals in our congregation, donated $15 a month above what their regular pledge, just put it aside for that purpose, we raised $54,000 in 1 year.
Wow.
Nice.
$15 a month. Not a day, a week, but a month.
Per person.
That's 50 cents a day.
Per person.
It's a person, yeah.
We don't have a large
That's interesting.
congregation.
Huh?
I said, we're not that large
We're not
either.
like the mega church over here in the Baptist church or whatever.
We certainly are capable of raising a lot of money, there's no doubt about that. We focus on it, there's no doubt. But still, $5 billion, it's like, there's gonna be a lot of congregations who have to come up with that one to get to the US pledge, for example.
You make this pitch to the Baptist churches, Christian churches.
As many as we can, as many as we can get out
That's
to.
where the people are.
Yeah, as many as we can. I just want to make sure, again, I don't hold you up too long, so I want to do a couple of things before we finish up here. I just want to ask any quick reactions. What was it like to take action tonight, just to write this letter? Did it feel good?
It felt good, and it felt, it wasn't, I mean, considering I didn't even have any statistics or anything in it, it was really pretty easy. It's
not
an
that
easy
hard.
thing to do, yeah.
It's not that hard. That's what we find actually at this stuff, is some of the things, a lot of the sort of fear factor comes from not knowing. You know, and it's not that hard. Not that you never are still afraid about it a little bit, but it's like, it's really not that hard, particularly when you have a group of people supporting you to do it, doing it together and all that.
And if you send us,
Yeah,
This
and
kind of thing,
we
yeah.
have this kind of guidance and support, it makes it a lot easier. So, okay, very good, very good. So why Results works, again, most people don't know how to advocate, so we teach people how to do it, and we support that. We recognize that the relationship building is a really vital to creating change. That really matters. I mean, we teach people to focus on relationship. Relationship matters. We own the idea that nobody should be left out, and remain bold even when this idea isn't popular. And then we take comfort in the fact that all the necessary solutions already exist, and we just need to put them in place. So I want to tell you just a little bit about my legacy. Since I would have never, before I was a part of Results, I could have never told you this. I could have never ever said this. My legacy, what I want my legacy to be, in my lifetime, I want to be a part of ending AIDS, and I feel confident that I can be a part of that and part of that solution. I want to end preventable child deaths by 2035, and I believe that I can be a part of that solution. I want to ensure that all children are receiving a quality education, and I believe that I can do that with Results. And I really want to end extreme poverty by 2030, this number that has been put out there. For me, this is like, if I do this stuff, then I can go on and do something else. I want to get done with this job. I want to do something else. But I don't feel like I can until we get some of this stuff done. This is what I want my legacy to be, and this is what Results has helped me. It seems kind of like it's crazy talk. It seems a little crazy talk. But I will tell you, at life's end, I'll report back to you that we've accomplished most of this stuff. So the opportunity here, I want to tell you a little bit about the opportunity that you've got in front of you today. So, we know that your time is really valuable. So here's what you get for your involvement in Results, and if you decide to do this. One is that you get to make a difference. Probably ever imagine yourself doing. Results folks, I often say that they kind of have to pinch themselves. I have them asking me, did I really help make that happen? And I'm telling them, yeah, you did. And it's sort of like they almost don't believe it. You become the person you want to be in the world. If anything on your paper that you wrote at the beginning of this thing has to do with making a difference in the world, making sure there's more justice in the world, making sure people have opportunity to become the people they need to become because you have access to the most powerful people in the world or anything like that, this is a good place for you. You learn new skills, and you have a great support structure of people in your chapter and nationally. And then the last one is probably the best one. You get your own personal happy dance. I've asked my volunteers a lot of times, like, so what is your personal happy dance? What's your happy dance? And someone will say, what do you mean, what's my happy dance? I said, so what do you do when your member of Congress signs on to the nutrition letter? What do you do when your letter to the editor shows up in the newspaper? What do you do when your member of Congress agrees to meet with you in person? You know, and there is joy that comes with that. There's absolute joy that comes with that, and everybody's got something that they do when that happens. I know what I do in my room when something like that happens. You know, it's like when I'm in my office or whatever else. And so when you get involved, what?
Can we see it?
Sometimes. But I have a number of happy dances that I do. The good thing is that I have one or several, and they come regularly for me because of my involvement in results. And I know they do for my volunteers. So the question is, what do you want your legacy to be in the world? And then could be, are you ready to take a little bit of a risk? Are you ready to experience perhaps a little bit of discomfort, to learn something new, to have on the other side of that more people like Selena have the opportunity to live a life and save her, take care of her kids. And that's what the results offers you, without question. So let me tell you about what it means to be involved. So people become partners, we call them partners in results chapters. And so what we typically like to do is have people working together in a community, starting a chapter. We've got a Tampa chapter. I've got 70 other global chapters around the country that I'm working with. People come together, decide they want to make a difference in the world, and work together to do that. They meet twice a month to scheme on creating the political will to end poverty. How are they going to move Bill Young? How are they going to move Dennis Ross from an uninformed person to a supporter? How are they going to get their newspaper to actually cover issues that make a difference in the world? So let's figure out how to do that, guys. It's our group. One of those meetings is a national conference call. We have a national conference call as a part of it, the second Saturday of every month. We bring in speakers, tremendous speakers. We tell people what the next hottest actions are to be taking, and we do some training with folks during that time. And then your group meets and decides other things at that time. Anybody who becomes part of results, you want to stay in contact with your chapter leader, take regular action, similar to what we've done tonight. Write a letter, make a phone call, meet with your members of Congress, become a point person for your staff or whatever the case may be. As a chapter, you conduct outreach meetings, you educate other people in your communities, reach out to some of those other faith communities perhaps and educate them about how they can make a difference, how they can participate. And then support results financially as you are able and inspired. Our chapters, after they develop, a lot of times they'll do small fundraisers. Some people become monthly sponsors, etc. And so we depend a lot on our volunteers to also be financial participants. Or you can do both of those. So my question for you tonight is, who's ready to start a chapter here in Clearwater?
Or could we just join up with the Tampa one to begin with and then spin off as we got more? Tampa's just
I think probably the most effective thing, I mentioned Linda Stoller, who leads the social justice work here. In fact, she said it to me when she heard this was coming. She said, perhaps we ought to just bring it in as one of the social justice things. And so it's kind of, that's sort of the umbrella for it. And if you're going to do it, if we were to do a chapter here, you definitely want to have her in the loop anyhow.
Oh, yeah.
So,
You have a chapter, it's more than the social justice.
yeah.
They have meetings on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's every Saturday morning, but
Once a month on
Yeah.
Saturday
Um,
morning.
It would actually give you a broader platform to talk to, first of all. I know you spoke to the whole church, but, you know, that kind of, it operates pretty quick. But the social justice group here is composed of a lot of very dedicated individuals. And we probably will get more traction talking directly.
How about you folks in the room here? Let's talk about the sort of congregational strategy. Where are you? Where are you folks on this? I mean, are you folks ready to jump on board? Are you folks ready to get
Somewhere.
involved?
I mean, yeah, either with Tampa or with our own social justice.
Now, the meeting, is that in person or on the phone?
Ideally, they're in person. The meetings are in person, ideally. We do find times where people are really busy, and I tell folks, like, if you're busy this month, you're able to get together for the conference call. Second meeting, people are just so busy, it's the summertime. I said, it's better to meet on the phone via conference call than to not meet at all. So get together, figure out what you need to be doing. Yes, sir.
I see this as it's a grassroots, how to do it thing to support the Global Fund. Is that accurate?
No, it's not only the Global Fund. Global Fund is just one example. We work in these other areas, education,
The
microfinance.
Global Fund doesn't do anything on those things.
No, not at all.
Because if it were simple, if it were focused and simple, it'd be an easier sell, of course.
I mean, we try to keep it as simple as possible, basically by creating themes each month. So there are, you know, we'll spend a good chunk of time actually working on the Global Fund this fall, for example. There'll be a lot of focus on the Global Fund.
That's
There-
because it's coming up.
That's because that's coming up, exactly. So we try to tailor our actions and the things that we're working on to a calendar on which they're going to make a difference. So there's a piece of educational legislation that will likely come out later this year. We'll probably do some initial work on getting co-sponsors for this piece of global education legislation as well. But we move the topics along, and then so we provide information to people, educate them on them, and then really have you all take an action, and then we kind of move to once. But we'll always come back to the Global Fund. Once we get if we get a Global Fund pledge out of the United States, we have to actually make sure that that money shows up every year.
Bill Gates' money, a lot of it goes to the Global Fund, I guess.
Yeah, he-
What?
Gates Foundation money.
Gates Foundation has put a lot of money in the Global Fund, and there's no doubt about that. And then they also invest in us, though, as advocates to make sure that we are leveraging our voices for the United States to invest a lot of money in the Global Fund. So they've got sort of multi-pronged strategy.